And so here, clinging to the pyramid, are these very irregular pieces set in great globs of mortar, just as fill, and you can see it. You can see the slop factor in the pyramid.
So what may look like shoddy workmanship is in fact another secret that helped the Egyptians succeed with their colossal build. But it was only Merer's brilliant limestone that would give the pyramid its perfect appearance. So this had to come from faraway Tura. But how did they get the massive stones to the pyramid using manpower alone?
Okay, Roger once again, MUDFOSSIL University today, talking about how the pyramids were built. As I have mentioned years ago, I said the pyramids were built from the top down, not from the bottom up. Now, I'm watching the Science Channel today, and now they say, ooh, yeah, guess what? We just found that the bedrock, the foundation underneath the pyramid is what I've been saying it is. They said it's sticking up from the ground, so they didn't have to do all this work. So now they're concentrating on the capstone. Well, I'm still concentrating on the foundation of the pyramid, which literally would have been a gigantic, huge plateau, and they work that backwards because they're made out of limestone, just like Devil's Tower. All right, I'm saying this is what they started with at the giant pyramids. Every pyramid was started with a structure similar to this, or a huge plateau looking structure like that. You see the water coming down from here all over the place? There's built-in passageways, there's plumbing in these things, and I understand these very well. And you see the blocky nature of these? You see that? And if you looked up very closely, these come off in little pieces like they have at the pyramids in blocks. And it is of the same material. So if they took these down and down, and they just sculpted it down all the way around like they could very easily, well, not easily, but it's a lot easier than building them up from the bottom. Now, the other thing is when they had to bring up the capstone, because the capstone is a clear limestone, which means it's marine limestone. This is terrestrial limestone, basalt limestones. It's CaCO3, which is the same thing. CaCO3 is a calcium carbonate. And it's the same thing as in seashells and in the marine limestone. Only the marine limestone is only that. Calcium carbonate, CaCO3. Nice, clear, white, no real imperfections. You see what you have here is CaCO3 highly invaded with other minerals and so forth, because this is the terrestrial type of limestone. Now, I understand this very, very well. I understand how it's formed, where it comes from, how it originates, and why this thing is here, why water is coming out of here, why these things are in chunks, why you're seeing the red and black. I understand all of that, and I will go into that at a later time. Now, talking about how the pyramids were built, they just took these things down and they just kept stacking them up until you got yourself a pyramid. All right, here's the pyramid. Natural rock, the grotto, the well. The well. The well. This was all natural stone going up in here until they put the capstones on. They just did what I was talking about a minute ago. This is the subterranean chamber. Now, what would that look like? Would that look like limestone? I think it would. Let's see what it looks like. And I want to tell you something else. The limestone that comes out of these places, it's like what they call tender stone. It's semi-soft when it's still in the ground and moist. As soon as it hits the air, it hardens up very quickly. All right, now, this was sent to me by, I can't remember who, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's supposedly the inside of the Great Pyramid. And I understand this quite well, what I'm looking at here. That is what happens when you chip away you break away at the facets of the limestone. And you end up with these angular blocks and so forth. And it's exactly what they said they found in the foundation stones now. They have started to look and they find in all of this stuff. Now, I can't, like I say, I can't absolutely verify that these are from under the pyramid, but I do believe, well, I know that's what it was told to me. And I'm sure somebody can make a statement if they've ever been under there. But it shows in the diagrams that there is a deep cavity in there. And that is what I believe is there. And there's a whole story. Well, let's go back to the story. Now, this was really the Cave of Wonders. And they went up there in the time of Mamun, came to a small passage containing the image of a man in green stone, which was taken out for examination to give to the caliph. When it was opened, a human body was discovered in golden armor decorated with precious stones. In one hand was a sword of inestimable value, and above his head a ruby the size of an egg, which shone like fire. Now, this is what came out of the Great Pyramid, which they say there was nothing in there. Well, apparently there was stuff in there, and this was well recorded. So I go with these texts much more credible than what they say in modern times. It's really silly stuff, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, here's what really tweaked me on this. Here's what it says. What thought of the earliest accounts of the tunnel dug in, what, though, of the earliest accounts of the tunnel dug into the pyramid? So how did they talk about this in their accounts? It says here, the most influential writers are two other Muslim chroniclers, Ad-al-Latif, circa 1220, and the renowned worldly traveler Ibn Battuta, circa 1360. Both men report that Mahmud ordered his men to break into Khufu's monument using fire and sharpened iron stakes. First, the stones of the pyramid were heated, then cooled with vinegar, and, as cracks appeared in them, hacked to pieces using sharpened iron staves. Ibn Battuta adds that a battering ram was used to smash open a passage, and it's all been found. It says nothing in either of these accounts seems implausible. The Great Pyramid does indeed bear a scar of a narrow passage been hacked into the limestone. Now, and they go on to, probably this did happen. Now, what turned me on here was that this is not an unknown process, this vinegar into limestone. And Hannibal did the same thing to get through some mountain. I mean, he broke down a mountain. It always boggled my mind. How much freaking vinegar did he have? It was a limestone impassable place. And he somehow opened it up with with vinegar and fire. And I read that long ago, and it always intrigued me. And then I read this, which these kind of things linked together just blow my mind. Nobody talks about any of this stuff. Okay, this is the video I did a couple of years ago, back in 2016, on how the pyramids were built from above. And here's how they were built. And you should go up here and, like I say, how the pyramids were built from above. Now, I go through the whole thing here about, the chemistry and all of the different, what do we have here? Oh, okay, this talks about the kaolin clay, which is only in terrestrial limestone. Here's the deal with limestone. It is the connective tissue structural component of creatures. It forms shells and structural components in fish and little, little marine creatures. And it also forms tendons and connective tissues and so forth in animals. That is what limestone is. CaCO3. It is in your body, and it is in the body of those other creatures. However, it's in a flexible form when it's in your body. When you die and it stops being serviced with the things to keep it flexible, it becomes invaded with other molecules, and it turns into limestone. And it can change in different ways depending upon the conditions it's preserved in, geothermal, solvents, all that business. But primarily in the ocean, in the marine sediments, in salts and so forth, most of the things get dissolved other than these connective tissues, and then they form the limestones. and it's in the mud fossils. The lungs are connective tissue, scaffolding, all of the tendons, all of that business. And Devil's Tower is a foot. Absolutely no question. And all these terrestrial creatures have kaolin clays. Now this guy, I'm going to let him speak for a second, because this is a video I did, like I said, a couple years ago, and he was talking about he's from the Geopolymer Institute in France, and they studied the matter that builds up all these pyramids, and he's working with Giza, and he realized that all of the capstones were the shiny white clear limestone. Now, I can't account for that. I'm not even going to worry about that. My point is that the base of that pyramid, and all pyramids, are from the feet of giants, giant creatures. And they all have blood vessels in them, and those blood vessels is a source of water, and that water was in all of these structures, and that's how and even Petra, I found a source of water. Petra found a source of water everywhere, and they are everywhere. And now they say, oh, we're digging down into them and we're finding all of these tunnels and things. Well, those are blood vessels, and the reason they're not full of water right now is because the surface of the earth, the water table and the fluid levels are so low that the surface of the earth is collapsing. So these things now are empty, a lot of them. Certain areas they get enough waterfall that it still pumps up enough. Like Machu Picchu, that's the same thing. That's a tendon, and that what's pumping up there into that is water that they collect up at the top. They think they did something fancy. Well, they did. They routed it down to collect it into, cisterns and things like that, where they could store it over the dry seasons, but they still could get a good runoff because it's water pressure in the ground. These feet go in the ground thousands of feet, literally. I can't tell you how it happened. I can tell you what the texts say how it happened. But even like in Australia, I kept saying if you dig deep enough, the blood in these creatures will settle into their feet. And if you can go to the tip of the calcaneus tendon in the feet deep enough, you will find the gold has puddled there, and it does. And they in Australia, they went to 1,600 feet now down. 1,600 feet, that's a long ways. And I could see right from the Google Earth that it was a no-toe, and they were right in the calcaneus tendon. They went straight down through the quartz, and by the time they hit bottom, it was loaded with gold. It came up with 25,000 ounces, and the guy says there's gold as far as I can see. And that's what's going to happen. These things were huge. So the amount of gold that's in you might be a zillionth of a gram or something, but in them it's tons and tons and tons. So that's what's going on. And let me let this guy talk for a second, and you can listen to what he's got to say about kaolin clays and all that business. All right, here goes.
4,500 years ago, these massive blocks have the same chemical makeup and appearance as blocks of the Great Pyramid. The limestone we used consists of fossil shells called nummulites, like those in the Giza bedrock. Like in Giza, our French limestone is so loosely bound it doesn't require crushing. But unlike in Giza, it contains no kaolin clay.
Smoking gun. Unlike in Giza, it contains no kaolin clay. That means that it's not terrestrial. So, the blocks were inside the pyramid have kaolin clay on them. I'll show you why. I know that, and they're the same ones, same type of stuff that is on Devil's Tower. You see that? That's Devil's Post Pile. That's an abrupt transition, and that's the wrinkle zone that happens in abrupt transitions. Now that could be a shoulder or whatnot, but you see all this little green stuff here? This is the signature of kaolin clays and skin clays. And this kaolin clay is a skin clay, and it's also used in the synovial sheaths and the fascia that separates all the tissues. And that's why these are all separated. In your body, they have to be separated or they cannot move freely because they are limestone in your body. So they have to be separated, and they have to be in this flexible form. Once they set up, this is the end result. And that's the wrinkle zone. Now let's look at Devil's Tower. All right, this is Devil's Tower. You see over there the wrinkle, I'm sorry, not the wrinkle zone, but that's the kaolin clay. And also this yellow is kaolin clay. It comes in yellow, brown, green, and red, white, and so forth. It comes in all the same colors of skin, really. Now, up here at the top, you see this? This is the wrinkle zone. Now, this is just a crunchy, old, crackly wrinkle zone. Sometimes they're just absolute flawless waves, and I'll show you some of those. But what this is the tendinous material that comes down and ends up wrapping around the heel of the foot. All right, that's the heel of the foot right here. Now, it comes down and it wraps around. That's your tendinous material. That allows you to move your foot around all these different ways, pulling on these different tendons. Now, if you understand anatomy well enough, you'll be able to see this. Now, I'll show you this here. The ankle, whoops, hold on. All right, if you understand anatomy well enough, you'll understand this is what they call an abrupt transition. Now, internal into there was the center of the bone mass. This is all the tendons that wrap around, and that allows your legs to do all kinds of different things and twists and so forth. They're very, very strong, but they are flexible. Now, the kaolin clays and all that stuff is in there. That's the wrinkle zone. That's the abrupt transition. This right here is the ankle. This is just the way it builds. It didn't come up basalt from volcanoes and come up this way and then that way and have this. This is the blood. That's the blood supply in the ankle. That's what they call the calcaneal, or the ankle. It's the Achilles tendon ankle right here. And that, there's one over here too. You see, those are the blood supplies. So all I can say is it is what it is, and they need to start paying attention to this. Now, I don't know what else to say about it other than that, they can avoid it, but they can't really deny it. They can just ignore it. All right, this is the Achilles tendon, and that's how they break with that abrupt, ragged-looking transition. And this is how they come down and they wrap around. Same thing, they come down and wrap around. There's blood supplies in here that are shown. Now, the layer of the soil there is like about here. That's why it comes down and makes these bulges on the sides. Very, very apparent. See, this is another type of abrupt transition, and they crack right at the top there. And then this one sort of made a smooth wrinkle, and then it will start to go straight down. Similar to what happened at Devil's Tower. They all have that abrupt transition wrinkle because they're all under tension. And this type of tendon, this type of stone, gives you the ring stone. This might not ring because it's lost its pull. But if this had not, deeper down, the stones that are still in their stretched phase, they should ring like a bell when you hit them.